Hey. So I'm glad that you posted this video. I think that these kind of conversations are really important to have, and you inspired me to want to reply to your video, so I think that's awesome. This is going to be a two-part reply. I've tried to make just one video, and it definitely isn't going to work. So the first response video that I'm going to post is going to talk about the idea of being trans as a medical condition. And then the second video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I know as a biologist about the biology of sex and possibly gender. So that'll be part two. Okay, so for this first part, I wanted to talk about being trans as a medical condition and sort of some of the issues that come into my mind when I think about this. And I just want to make a disclaimer right off the bat that I don't, if I express a dissenting view from yours, I don't, or if I'm expressing my own views, and if other people hold views different from mine, I do not mean my points of view to say that you're wrong or anything like that. I think everyone's entitled to feel how they do and to think what they will. But I wanted to present how I feel. So, I guess just on a gut emotional level, seeing your video, and even though I totally understand where you're coming from, it made me kind of sad, for a number of reasons, which I guess I'll get into. The first thing is that I think that over time, within the past century or so, people have found that the best way to treat the dysphoria that trans people feel, if they want to, is to go through a medical transition. I think that the pain that trans people feel because of a lot of the dysphoria that they have with their body, and what that means about their relationships with other people and in society, I want to emphasize that that pain is totally real and totally not cool, just in terms of something I experience, and and so yes, so the way that we've come up to treat that is to that people undergo a medical transition. And I think that for many trans people, if not most, if not the vast majority of trans people who ultimately do transition, that medical transition has the effect of making their lives livable and allowing them to be who they are, and to find some happiness in life, which I think is obviously important. And so in that way, treating it as a medical condition is valid because, there are medical aspects involved with the transition, physical transition. There were just a couple of things that you said that really struck a chord with me and made me feel sort of uncomfortable. I think one of them is the idea of fixing trans people before, before. And I understand where that motivation is coming from in terms of, you yourself and I have too, have suffered the, body dysphoria, and just the pain of existing in the world and not having people see who you are. And wanting to minimize that for people in the future. And I think that is totally admirable, and something that I feel like I could get behind. But you run into a lot of these ethical issues, I think, when you think about fixing that, not that I'm equating these entirely, but being gay is like being trans. I don't think really a choice, and if it's not a choice, there's probably some underlying biological basis for being gay. Like I said, I'm going to talk about the biological basis for transness later. I wonder whether we should think about fixing gay people before they experience any negative feelings, or fixing people who have various mental disorders like bipolar or depression. Those are can be very painful disorders. And if we could find the biological basis for it, what are the ethics of fixing that? Another reason that I wanted to talk about this is because although there is for sure a part of being trans that is internal, and a very real understanding, if you want to talk about, when I say being trans, I guess I'm sort of limiting myself to the transsexual, if you want to go into that terminology, because not all people who identify as trans transition for a wide number of reasons, but that there is something inside that disconnect between what your brain thinks about yourself and what your body is materially. So I think that part is definitely a part of a lot of the feelings that we have and the pain that we encounter. Another important part is the way that society treats bodies, the way that society decides how to categorize different bodies, and how to treat people who inhabit those bodies. And I think that societal acceptance of being trans, shaking loose some of society's clinging to this body, this identity, this way of being treated or living in the world, and allowing for differences. I think that sort of societal acceptance would have an amazing impact on the way that trans people feel about themselves. And I don't think that it would eliminate, transness at all, but I think that would do a lot to get rid of a lot of the pain that we experience on a daily basis. So, yes, I think that there are certainly biological aspects to transness, but I think that the trans experience would not need to be as painful as it currently is if society was not the way that it is, and not so stuck on I know what kind of body you have, therefore I know what kind of person you are, therefore I'm going to treat you in this certain way. Yes. So, to sum up, after this long ramble, I understand where that feeling, and for a lot of people, that is what they have a medical condition, and that is what they're experiencing. But to then sort of move forward and say that this is something that could be fixed, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, and then should be fixed, is a whole other sort of slippery slope issue, and I guess, it's sort of, where do we stop, who gets to make that call, those sorts of issues involved in thinking about being trans as a medical condition. Okay, so I'll stop here and I'll post part 2. I hope that made some kind of sense or had some kernel of value in that 10 minutes of rambling. Okay, thanks.